In this video, I will be sharing a different way to create a tessellation using the gaps method. It's a little bit more difficult than the slice method that I showed you in the first video. And the advantage to the gaps method is that you can use any kind of a shape to begin with. So if you have something in particular in mind that you want to create a tessellation about, like the state of Texas, for example, some kind of a shape that's different and it doesn't tessellate, then you can actually use this gaps method to create your tessellation with any unusual shape. Using a square of tagboard, draw and cut out the shape that you want to create. And in this case, I decided to make a bottle of glue. So I've drawn it and I've cut it out. Then trace your template onto your piece of paper, and what you'll need to do is trace them in such a way that the gaps between the bottles of glue are all the same. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. Now I've completed my first row of glue bottles. When I start my second row, I will need to figure out exactly how I want to line them up so that I can make my gaps the same each time. In this next picture, you can see that I've placed a small dot on the bottom of my bottle of glue, right there. Now you can see it better, and that's to help me line up the top of the glue bottle with that little point each time as I trace it onto my design to help me keep my gaps in line. I also drew a tiny guideline on each side of my glue bottle so that I can line those up as well. In this picture, you can see that the gaps are starting to take on a shape after the addition of the second row. If you're not sure what I'm talking about this small space in between the bottles of glue. I need to pay particular attention to the shape of that because I'm going to have to turn it into something. Right now, that shape looks to me a bit like a shield, or it could be perhaps a badge of some kind or a mask. Maybe you have a different idea of how we could add detail to that to make it look like something. I'll need to add detail and turn that into something, just like I'll have to go back and add the details to my bottles of glue to make them look like they are supposed to. Adding the label and all of the other details. And so basically that's how the gaps method works. You create your shape, you put it together, you identify the shape that the gap creates, and fill them in, and you have yourself a tessellation. And in this final slide, you can see this is an example of a tessellation that's been done using the gaps method and having some more of the details filled in. The positive shape that I started off with was the foot shape. And then, as I put it together with itself, I was able to create a gap that seems to be the same each time, and that gap to me looked like a dress, so I added detail to make it look like a dress. So this one is basically finished well, at least in the main section of it. There's a few little details to add, and at this point I'd be ready to add color. So now you can see how to do the gaps method, and you can choose whether the gaps method or the slice method will work best for your tessellation.